Hello, my name is Loktin and this is my website. Today we continue to talk about the Bazi for beginners, and this is the number 9 video, and we are going to talk about the 10 gods, or in Chinese called Sab Sab. So let's start. So the 10 gods, they are not a real, religious god. They're not like a god in any religious. It is, from my opinion, is just a variable or a name to represent the interrelationship between the 5 elements. And the 10 god is very important when you look at the chart. Using in the 10 god representation, you can very easily identify the chart type, the person about this chart. Over on there's many masters. They use a different technique. Some use the 10 gods, some just purely use the elements. But in my opinion, if we just need to manage one technique first, and then you can further develop into the other different technique, which is I think is the best to have a very good foundation for what you have learned, strengthen it, and then you can learn other different schools of reading the chart. So for what I've been learning is mainly using the 10 gods. Strictly speaking, there's only 5 gods, but because there's a yin and the yang, so they create 10 of them. So how this 10 god is represented in the 4-pillar chart, we need to understand this concept first. Remember, we have 5 elements. We always have like the wood here, the wood, the fire, the earth, the metal, and then the water. So these 5 elements, they are in a producing cycle, or enhancement cycle. So the wood will produce fire, fire produce earth, earth produce metal, metal produce water, and water produce wood. And then each of these elements, there's an interaction in between them. It is really depends on the point where you are standing, right? So if you are standing here, let's say this is the point. Remember, we talked about the Feng Shui, about the Tai Chi, which is that particular point we want to look at. So in this case, let's look at wood. So for the wood, the wood will give fire, okay? So the wood will give fire. That means the fire will drain the wood. So the fire was given a name in the Chinese character. Is the first one is they call Six, or eating God. This is a direct translation, Six. So you can thinking of like eating away the wood. So the fire eating away the wood, or they have another name. It's called the Shen Gun, or I translate it is hurting officer. So what that means is when the fire burns the wood, it will eat away the wood or hurting the wood. So you can think of that way. So if you're still standing from the wood point of view, so the water will feed the wood. So water will feed the wood. So water is the resources. So water is the resources, or we call it a yang. Or also sometimes they call a pin yang. Indirect resources, pin yang. We just use this symbol to like a P or like a P to represent the indirect resources. So this is indirect resources. Indirect resources. So why is indirect? I will tell you a little bit later. But you need to understand in this representation first. Like we are, I repeat again here, we are standing here as the wood element, right? So water will produce wood. What produce wood is water, right? So we give a symbol or a variable. It's called the yang or resources. For example, whether it's resources or indirect resources, it will depend the yin and yang of the wood or the water. So wood generally is the jia and yi, right? So jia wood, or some people call yang wood, or yi is the yin wood. Okay, so that's yang, that's yin. And water, we had the, let me write another color, which is, that's the yin and gui. Okay, so the yin is yang and the gui is yin. Okay, so if it's a yin water produce yang wood, is called a resources. If it is a yang water produce a yang wood, we call indirect. So when yin and yang, one yin and one yang, they call resources, direct resources. And yang and yang, or yin and yin, is called indirect resources here. Same as here in the fire. So the fire will be the bin and ding, right? So we have talked about the stems. The bin is yang fire, the ding is yin fire. So it depends on, let's say, jia and bin is they both yang and yang. So in this case, it's called the eating god, the eating god. If it's jia and ding, jia would produce yin fire, is called the hurting officer. Okay, so yin wood produce yang fire, is called the hurting officer, and the yin wood produce the yin fire, is called the eating god. Okay, so then this is the two relationship, to one above you and one under. And then what about the earth and the metal? The wood will control earth. So the wood will control earth. So wood control the earth. So what I control is wealth. What I control is wealth. Wealth, okay? So we will write 財, okay? Wealth. And same concept apply. So in here, the earth will have the wu, right? And the ji. So wu is yang and ji is yin. Okay. So when jia control wu, like yang control yang, is called an indirect wealth. Indirect wealth. So we call indirect wealth, which is when the yang, look at the yang, it's called indirect wealth. In Chinese, some master, we just use this symbol to represent in the chart, 偏財. So when the Jia and the Ji, like Jia control earth, Jia and the Ji, so that's wealth, 正財, or that's called, we call 正財, okay, 正財 or 偏財, direct or indirect. So there's also another special combination. If you can remember, the stems, the Jia and the Ji, they combine. The Jia and the Ji, they combine. So that means the wealth is combined with the Jia. That means the wealth coming to you. So wealth coming to you. However, you do need to look at whether this wealth is a good wealth or is not a good wealth, because everything, there's a yin and yang again, so you can look at as positive or negative. So we will talk about this in the later stage, don't worry. So we will look at in this case first. So because we are still standing in the wood here, okay? So if we look at metal, metal control wood, right? Metal, they control the wood, okay? So metal here, we have the Geng and the Xin. So Geng is yin and Xin is, Geng is yang and yin is yin, okay? So this metal control wood. So what control me, control the wood, is become the officer, or in Chinese called 正官. So yin control yang is called officer. Yang control yang is called 七殺, or some direct translation is called 7 killings, or sometimes 7K, 7 killings. So this is from the wood point of view, However, if you shift one to standing from wood, from the fire point of view, okay, so let's say now we're standing here in the fire, then wood become the resources, okay? The earth become the eating god or hurting officer. The metal become wealth, and the water become officer, because water control fire, and the wood become resources. If we are standing at the earth point of view here, the fire become resources, the metal become eating god or hurting officer. The water become the wealth, and the wood become the officer or 7 killing. If we standing from metal point of view, okay, then the earth here become the resources, water become the eating god or hurting officer, the wood become the wealth, and the fire become the officer or the 7 killing. It depends on the yin and yang. So once we have this 10 gods with the yin and yang, or 5 gods without yin and yang, then we can look at the relationship. For example, what produce us? What giving birth to us is the mother. So resources in the chart, it can be represent mother, it can represent knowledge, we can represent the eldest lady, it can represent auntie. So there's different representation in there. So I will talk about that in the next video, about the different representation of these 10 gods. So I will stop here. I hope it's not too complicated for you. If you cannot grab it, you can go back and watch another time. It will be there. It's for free, and hope this video benefit you. And don't hesitate to give me a like, click, and then share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It is nearly 970 subscribers now, so thank you for being here, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.